Russia give you this information, or anybody associated with Russia?
Our source is not a state party. So the answer for our interactions is no.
You did not get this information about the DNC, John Podesta's emails. Can you tell the American people 1,000% you did not get it from Russia or
Yes.
anybody associated with Russia?
We can say, we have said repeatedly over the last 2 months that our source is not the Russian government and it is not a state party.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange on this program back in January, denying Russia had anything to do with giving WikiLeaks the DNC emails during the 2016 election. Earlier this month, Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher of California traveled to London. He met Assange face-to-face, the first congressman to do that. Following the meeting, Rohrabacher predicted that if the American people knew the information that Assange has, and he would be the one guy that knows the truth of where it all came from, they would be outraged over the time that was wasted blaming Russia for this particular hack. And now Congressman Rohrabacher says that a meeting is being arranged between him and the president to discuss what he was told by the WikiLeaks founder. Now, former NSA whistleblower Bill Binney, 34-year veteran, he's also questioning the Russian hacking story. Watch this.
The NSA, for example, has all the fiber optic taps across the United States and even around the world, plus trace route programs embedded in hundreds of places all over the network. So I knew they would know if packets were being passed around the U.S. or outside the U.S. or anywhere in the world, they could trace them and see who got them. I mean, they did that several years ago with the Chinese hack that came in that said it came from that building, I think, in Shanghai. Well, they could do the same thing with virtually any hack. So right away, I began to question that assertion that they were hacking into the DNC.
Now, I had Bill Binney on my radio program. He said 99% certainty, 34-year veteran, NSA, that it was not Russia. Now, some news outlets have also been reporting that former U.S. spies doubt this Russia hacking narrative, including Bloomberg. They ran an article entitled, "Why Some U.S. Ex-Spies Don't Buy the Russia Story." Even the liberal Nation, they wrote a report, a new report, raises big questions about last year's DNC hack. The Washington Times did the same thing. Joining us now, California Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. One, I want to give you credit. It is true that if there's one person on earth that would know the source of this, wouldn't it be Julian Assange of WikiLeaks? And isn't it true WikiLeaks has never been wrong in 11 years?
Well, I don't know if they've never been wrong, but I know that he's the ultimate source.
Never been proven wrong. And the material they've released.
Proven wrong. Oh, yeah. The things that he released were honest and truthful. Now, some of the things he released, I'll have to admit to you, I would have preferred him not releasing. I thought it was wrong, but you take a balance of what's happened. He's disclosed massive amounts of information of which the government's been keeping secret from us. And I think it's a good thing that American people have transparency in their government.
One thing, and I've interviewed him 4 times on radio and 1 time on TV, and I asked him numerous times, would you ever release anything that would put people in the field, innocent people, in harm's way? And he swore he would not. Are you convinced that that's true? Because I can't think of an instance. Can you?
Well, when you say it's whether or not someone is intentionally doing that, I certainly don't believe that he would intentionally put American intelligence or military people at risk. But some of the things that have come out, and I would have preferred, I would think, yeah, well, not only embarrassing, but perhaps it's something that would have been best handled behind the scenes. But our government and all governments around the world have tried to hide massive amounts of information about what they're doing from their own people. And I think that what we have in WikiLeaks is an exposure that
I don't mean
those things that they want to keep secret.
You know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, 3 times, 5 times. Allegedly, Julian Assange at 16, Kim.com at 16, hacked into the DOD, hacked into NASA. Now, he's 45. At what point is it America's fault that we have not built the cybersecurity to prevent that from happening? And at some point, do we blame our own government for its failure?
Well, I will just have to say that I don't think our government should have as many secrets as they have, and they've been keeping information from us. And Julian Assange's operation, well,
we should be unhackable after 35 years.
Well, we should be unhackable, but we should make sure that information that doesn't deserve to be secret should be available to the American people.
Okay.
And in that, Julian Assange is doing a great service.
Let's talk about...
A great service.
So he would be the one person that knows where this information came from.
Right.
Do you believe that this Trump-Russia collusion narrative will be proven false, and do you believe he holds the key?
The answer is absolutely yes, and I think that this Russian narrative that you're talking about, this idea, this unrelenting, sinister, story about how Trump colluded with the Russians in order to steal the elections is a total con job, it's a fraud, and it's masking a power grab. Because what they're doing is they're trying to undermine the ability of the person the voters voted for they're undermining his ability to assume the power and authority and appointments that the President of the United States has given authority to do by the voters.
It is possible that the media has lied to the American people, and the Democrats have lied to the American people for nearly a year, and that they've disrupted the flow of information and manipulated the flow of information in this country for nearly a year. You're saying, what is the percentage certainty that this has all been a lie?
Oh, in terms of what I believe, and after looking into this, I think it's about 99% that it's a total lie. This is and of course you've had these people who politicized our intelligence agencies, the Obama appointees who jumped into this, giving credence to a total fraudulent analysis of what happened. And this was not something where Russia colluded with Trump in order to steal the elections. They are stealing the elections.
Doesn't Robert Mueller then need to talk to Assange? Doesn't he need to at least look at the evidence or attempt to get the evidence? Does he care about the truth? And
these people haven't even looked at Hillary Clinton's collusion with the Russians, where they put tens of millions of dollars
uranium
into the Clinton Foundation. Unbelievable. But then they want to find out, did someone with President Trump actually talk in some ways?
Okay.
And then they complain about me. By the way,
I'm about to lose you.
I've had a lot of people who attack me. I am the chairman of the committee that oversees our relations with Russia. It is my job to
You have a
find this out.
specific message for the President of the United States, but it's only one that you could tell him privately.
That's
in this
correct.
environment, is it going to be hard to tell him privately? Because, Dana Rohrabacher is now sending back messages from Julian Assange. Is that going to be possible? And if not, will you go public with what you know? And obviously, Julian Assange probably wants to just be left alone and go to Ecuador, is what I'd imagine, right?
I think that's probably it. I think what we have here, it's really important for the truth to be known. And I think the President of the United States needs to hear what the details are. And I understand that a meeting with myself and the President is being arranged. So at that point, the purpose is to alert the American people to the truth of what of this whole situation
If he has the truth that will blow this lie out of the water that you're saying, and 99% certainty, does he deserve immunity if he reveals the truth to the American people?
Well, if the truth is revealed to the American people, this is a game changer in this unrelenting, hostile attack by the media and this power grab by the left wing. And if he helps thwart that, yeah, he deserves a reward.
All right, Dana Rohrabacher, we're going to have you back next week. We'll stay on this story. This is pretty blockbuster. When we come back, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange on this program back in January saying and denying that Russia had anything to do with giving WikiLeaks the hacked Democratic emails during the 2016 election. Now, this is important as we continue with the executive vice president of the Hill, John Solomon. I've interviewed him, as I said, 4 times on radio. I've interviewed him once on television. And here's an interesting sidebar. Whether you like WikiLeaks or not, and I know that at times Democrats liked him, at times Republicans liked him. But here's a guy that hacked into the DOD and NASA when he was 16. I think he's now 45. Now, at some point, we've got to say shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. Now shame on America for not building the cybersecurity that they should have. And so there's a lot of angry people, which I understand.
Sure. But
they also have a responsibility. But 11 years, WikiLeaks has never gotten it wrong. So Rohrabacher, the congressman from California, meets with them.
Right.
And Julian is saying he's got the proof it wasn't Russia. And he would be the one guy, I think, in the whole world that would know more than anybody. So here's the question. Rohrabacher now has a message for the president. What did he tell you about that?
He said that he has some non-public information that Julian Assange gave him that he's going to take back to the president. He also had a request from Assange, which he was willing to talk about, which was Assange would like WikiLeaks to have a seat in the White House press corps. So there's a little horse trading going on in these negotiations.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing Julian Assange signal that he might be open to do some sort of deal. The question is the American government, is the Congress interested in doing such a deal with a guy who has brought a lot of harm to national intelligence sources from the information he's released? He's not a hero in the intelligence community, that's for sure.
I know he's not a hero in the intelligence community, but again, I go back to, at some point, well, we saw how corrupt Hillary Clinton was. We learned an awful lot about what happened to Bernie Sanders, didn't we, in that whole mess? That Bernie, that primary was rigged. There was a story with Debbie Wasserman Schultz because he got fired on the eve of the Democratic National Convention, right?
That's right. Yeah, no, listen, there's three things that Julian Assange over the last 10 years has brought to light. One, how penetrable our supposedly secure systems in government were, how easy it was to hack. Two, how much surveillance was going out of Americans that no one really knew about,
how much more Hillary is.
And then three, the entire Democratic National Committee storyline where it looked like the party was trying to hamper the election opportunities of Bernie Sanders. And I think those are three storylines that are not in question. People recognize that WikiLeaks had a contribution to that. I did something before I came on tonight. I made a couple calls in the intelligence community. I had one interesting response I want to share with you, Sean. One of the big intelligence sources I talked to said, listen, we've said all along we're confident Russia did some hacking in the election. We didn't say they were the only ones that hacked. And I think that was the first sign in any time I've talked to someone in intelligence that there might be some room.
All right. What's really, I think, important, and it's interesting with Chelsea Manning now, and you factor that into this equation.
Right.
And I'd been to the Ecuadorian embassy. It's a tiny space. He's holding firm. He believes in his principles. He said to me that he says, I'm reporting things that people need to know. There is a real danger, and you and Sarah Carter are probably at the forefront of investigating this, and that is, I thank God for intelligence, as we saw in Barcelona earlier today, against ISIS and radical Islam and against Iran and China and Russia and all these countries. They're not our friends. They're not our friends, and we need to know about dangers that we may face. We give them the most powerful tools. But if those tools are turned against the American people and used against the American people illegally because we have laws that prevent that, that's a very dangerous scenario. What about the IT guy of Debbie Wasserman Schultz that got 4 counts today charged with?
Yeah, very interesting, right? There's a lot we don't know in that case as well. But this is a gentleman that worked in the ID department, had access to congressional computers, congressional secrets, possibly her DMC email. And he's now been indicted on 4 charges, mostly related to bank fraud and other questions that have come up. But there's a lot of new information that I'm hearing in law enforcement circles that they're developing about what he did at day, at night. And I think they're looking at some possible connections to other activity besides the charges that were filed today. And I think we're going to learn a lot from the Capitol Police, the FBI, in the coming months about that case. That's a very open and uncertain question about what happened to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's emails.
It's going to be interesting to see what Dana Rohrabacher came back with, and I think the American people need to know the truth. And I'm calling on Robert Mueller tonight. He is investigating supposed collusion. He has a duty to find out what that information is. And the same thing with Congress. The Republicans are in charge. They have subpoena powers, investigative powers. They need to do their job because this has been 11 months long, no evidence yet presented. Thank you, John Solomon. Keep up the good work. According to a report from the AP, the House Intel Committee has officially subpoenaed the Justice Department and the FBI for information related to the now debunked Trump-Russia dossier. Now, you might remember this dossier made, well, extremely obscene fake allegations about then-candidate Trump. And according to a piece by Byron York in the Washington Examiner, quote, the subpoenas are an indication of growing frustration inside the committee over the FBI and Justice Department's lack of cooperation cooperation in the Trump-Russia investigation. Here with reaction, California Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. Congressman, how is that possible? Because, you know, how did they, if you have subpoenaed and your committee, how are they not turning this over to you, especially now that we know that it's false and phony and fraudulent?
Well, obviously what's happened is that the FBI and various people in our intelligence community have been politicized by this rule of liberal left Democrats. 8 years of control of our executive branch of government by one of the furthest left presidents we've ever had, if not the furthest left. This is politicized and degraded the quality and the standards of our intelligence community and the FBI. This is what Obama left us. How horrible is that?
You met with Julian Assange.
Yes.
I've interviewed him 5 times, radio and TV. WikiLeaks has never been proven wrong in 11 years. You told me on radio you believe him. And he's told you that he can prove, and he would be the one person that knows where the information came from that leaked on the DNC. He told you he has incontrovertible, irrefutable evidence that in fact shows Russia was not involved.
That's correct. And now when we realize, if that's the case, that Russia was not involved in hacking or stealing those emails from the Democratic National Committee and then having them disclosed, once we know the Russians weren't involved, then we have to understand that this massive propaganda campaign, this historic con job that happened after the election to prevent our president from exercising the powers granted to him by the voters. This is one of the great crimes, political crimes against the American people in our history.
How confident are you, percentage-wise, that it was never Russia?
I would suggest that I'm 99% sure that it was not Russia, because Julian has made very clear that we're not relying on him. People say, well, who do you believe? Our intelligence services or Julian? No, we're not talking about trust or believing someone. When this man says, I have hard evidence, that's what you do. You look at the evidence, and I will say that when he shows us the hard evidence and we have proof,
all right, here's the next one. Do you think in any way it could be related to the reason why, and I'm asking, and you investigate this, that it could be related in any way to the 33,000 deleted emails, the bleach bit acid wash, the destruction of Blackberries and iPhones, and maybe even Deborah Wasserman Schultz and her mess that she's got with her IT guy and busted up hard drives? Do you think they're all interrelated?
The liberal left establishment got a twofer on this. Number one, they tried to immobilize and disrupt our new president, negate what happened during the election. That's number one. But because they lost the election. Number two, however, they have been able to distract us from the real story here, the real crimes that were committed in Russia with the Russians, which was the Hillary Clinton Foundation, which is Podesta, which is all of these people who are working with the Russians.
I got to run. Will the American people get the absolute truth, and will it prove that the media and Democrats have lied about this? Will this all come out, and how soon?
I will tell you that I have submitted to Chairman Royce of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the chairman, a request for a hearing into Hillary and the Democrats who have been, and others.
And they'll be proven having lied to the American people?
That's right.
All right, sir. Thank you for being with us. When we come back, why is the House Intel Committee having such a hard time getting answers?